Hello everybody, Jeff Perro back with another episode of Catch Up with JP. Today's guest is Mr. Dan Otero. Mr. Otero spent parts of 8 seasons in the big leagues. Now he has a really interesting job as the Senior Director of On-Field Operations for Major League Baseball. Anybody got any clue what that means? I don't have any clue what that means. Looking forward to finding out about it. Also, interesting fact for you, Mr. Otero and I were together in the 2008 Augusta Green Jackets. I was the home clubhouse manager. He was the closer. He got promoted mid-season because he's freaking rad. So it's been 17 years since I've talked to this man, and really looking forward to catching up with him. Everybody, I'd like to welcome Mr. Dan Otero to our show today. Mr. Otero is an 8-year big league veteran. Spent parts of a year with the Giants, 3 years with the A's, 4 years with the Indians, and now he has a really interesting job I cannot wait to hear more about with the Major League Baseball office. Mr. Otero, hello.
Hello, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. Really good seeing you again after all these years.
I know, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
I think it's almost been
I worked with this
years.
man. Yeah, I worked with this man in 2008. So it has been. I'm really bad at math. It's about 77 years since I've actually seen this guy in person.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I mentioned the email, man. I'm so. I hate to use the word proud because that sounds kind of silly, but so proud of all that you've accomplished since 2008.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no.
You're a long career on the mound.
Yeah, don't forget the Salad League Championship in 2008 also. Don't forget
I still have my ring, but sadly it's in storage.
Oh, is it? I actually have mine right here. I was almost going to bust it out. I might have to do it at some point here.
And also in storage, I know I have some, Green Jackets championship T-shirts as well.
Ooh, so, I don't have any of those.
They might have some holes in them now, but we'll see when I get them out of storage eventually.
I think my daughter was wearing my Green Jacket ring the other day, actually.
Oh, I would be freaking out if my daughter had my championship ring on. Where are you living right now?
I'm in Miami, so Coral Gables, Florida, right? Yeah, right by University of Miami.
Okay, I'm in Bradenton now. I'm about 10 minutes from the Pirates Stadium, training stadium.
Nice. You guys.
So Daniel, I heard that you grew up as a baseball fan. Where did you grow up, and how did you get into baseball?
Yeah, no, Jeff, thanks for having me on. Huge baseball fan growing up. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. My dad was born in Cuba, and his dad grew up a huge baseball fan in Cuba. So they used to go to Winter League games down in Cuba and Havana when some major league teams used to do training down there, namely the Orioles and the Yankees. And so baseball has always been talked about in my house when I was younger. You know, my grandfather was a huge Yankee fan. My dad then followed in his footsteps as a Yankee fan. My uncle decided to go against the grain and was a Dodger fan. So it was just always a big topic of conversation in the household, and used to always hear stories about the players they saw in Cuba come down. Hoyt Wilhelm was one of them, a knuckleballer from the Orioles. So it was just always a part of my life, and fortunate enough to be put in little leagues, when I was younger down in South Florida. We can talk about the Little League program too now, because that's kind of defunct, but that's a whole nother story. And then just kept playing and kept playing. Was very fortunate enough to get a chance to play in college, and like you said, very, very lucky to end up pitching in the big leagues for a while.
I said that's interesting. It's kind of interesting that you grew up a baseball fan, because I've met a lot of guys that play baseball that just kind of are athletic, are good at baseball.
Yeah.
And they're 18 years old and they couldn't name 10 major league teams if you put a gun to their head. There's not baseball fans as good at it. So it's kind of interesting that you grew up a fan of the game as well. That's notable.
Grew up a fan and love the history of it as well. Still do. I think it's just a fascinating sport to really understand how far back it's gone. In college, I actually did a thesis for an independent study in history on baseball. I convinced the professor that I could do a 20-page paper on baseball. He was like, "Really?" He's like, "Come at me with something." So I ended up convincing him I was going to do it on minorities in baseball, and I was able to follow actually the Dodgers and Branch Rickey and how they were kind of at the forefront of a lot of the minority inclusion in baseball as players.
The minorities in baseball, that's a thing that's becoming kind of more so than it was when you began your professional career 10 years ago, there's less diversity than there was 10, 20 years ago in the game now. So that's interesting that you have interest in that, especially
Well,
in
it
the position that
never.
you're in now.
Well, I think Jeff, the diversity has changed in a lot of ways, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, right.
um, when we played, when we were together in '08, at the low A level, it was almost half and half in terms of
Yeah,
American and Latino players. Now yes, we're getting more globalization from types of
right.
players, like whether it be Japan, Korea, different parts of Latin America, trying to get Australia in, trying to get different parts of Europe in.
There's guys getting signed out of Africa and Europe now.
It is.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and that's a testament to what the league has done. But if you go back 30 years, the player population of black players was upwards of over 20%,
Right.
and now that number has decreased dramatically to like 6%. So you're seeing a shift in who the minorities are in the player population, which is interesting and something that I know the league is cognizant of.
Right. And so you, Duke University, that's a smart kid school, and you did a thesis on baseball history. That's
It was a smart kid school that I could not have gone to without baseball, so I took
all
advantage
right.
of it. That's for
Hey,
sure.
that's great. That's great for young kids to hear to take advantage of baseball for a college scholarship, Peace College.
You know, it's I like that you said young kids because I think it's really good for parents and kids to know one of the first questions a player gets in high school from a college coach, no matter the sport, is what's your GPA?
Right.
Because if your GPA or test scores aren't good enough, a lot of schools they can't recruit you.
Right.
And they can help you get into the school, but if you don't have that, at least that baseline, of a good GPA and a good test scores, they just won't recruit you. And getting into school can really open up a lot of doors athletically and beyond.
Yeah, I think yours might have had a hand in opening up your after baseball career as well.
Oh,
I guess we'll get
100%.
to that part.
Yeah,
So
100%.
you're drafted by the Giants in 2007, made your way up through their system. You got your debut on April 7th of 2012. Spent a little bit of time with them. Went over to the A's for a few years, and then the Indians for a few years. Give us a little rundown of your major league career and what that was like. What was it like making your debut and
Yeah, it was.
playing in the big games that you played in?
Yeah, it was a dream come true. Honestly, never thought it was ever going to happen. Never thought I was good enough to play college baseball. Never thought I was good enough to play pro baseball. Watching guys pitch and hit and run and throw. When I got to pro ball, I was like, oh my God, these guys are so good. They're grown men. They can throw harder. They can do this better. Um, Convinced myself I was good enough, whether I lied to myself or tricked myself, whatever. Had that inner confidence that I didn't try to exude too much and just kind of put my head down and perform at every level. Was very fortunate enough to make the opening day roster with the Giants in 2012, like you said. And it was a good year to be on the Giants. We ended up winning the World Series at the end of it. So nice World Series ring. And, I still have my lineup card for my debut. I actually look at it every time I'm in my office here because it reminds me of, that achievement. And seeing the names on there is pretty cool. Bumgarner started the game. A guy I played with in the lower levels, which is
I know that
really,
guy.
which is really cool to, play with him in the big leagues after being with him in Augusta, being with him in San Jose, being with him in Connecticut. He went through those levels a little faster than me, but we still got to the top together.
And you went through those levels faster than some other guys did. So
Yeah, true. But then just like any other person, I think in the big leagues, you have your ups and downs, right? Like I didn't stick with the Giants. They discarded me in 2013 at the end of spring training, bounced around, ended up making it up in June of 2013 with the A's. And then from that point on, I kind of stuck in the big leagues, which was awesome.
But when did you finally feel comfortable, like you belonged,
Uh,
and you weren't looking
I
over your
don't.
shoulder?
Yeah, I don't think I ever felt like I belonged, Jeff. I'll be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I thought I belonged, but I also knew that if I didn't keep working hard or keep trying to get better, there was going to be somebody trying to take my job. Every year the organizations draft upwards of 25 players now. Sometimes with free agent signs, 30, 35 from the domestic realm, and then they bring in another 15 or 20 from international. So there's 50 new people coming into the organization every single year, trying to push the group ahead of them. So I never tried to dwell on where I was and always try to push to get better. So I don't know if I ever actually felt like I ever did belong, because if I felt that way I felt like I got complacent.
Mm.
But I was lucky enough to stick, from 13 to 19, pitching some big games, like you said. Made it to another World Series in 16 with Cleveland. Now they're the Guardians, so I'm trying to say Guardians and not their other name, but yeah.
I have been saying the other name. I didn't catch myself and say Cleveland. Thanks for
That's
correcting
all
me there.
right.
Yes.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
They had a great year this year too.
Yeah, they did for sure. Uh, your final season in the big leagues was 2019. You went to spring training with the Yankees, correct? In 2020.
In 2020, yep.
Bro, I wasn't around baseball at the time. I have a real curiosity of what the 2020 baseball season was like. And I know you were the Yankees in spring training, and I was living in Clearwater at the time, a few miles away from the Phillies facility. And man, it's just a weird time to be alive, much less imagine a strange time to be a Major League Baseball player. Tell me a little about your 2020 season.
Yeah. Well, it was
your 2020 experience, I guess we'll say.
2020. Yeah, no kidding. Well, after 2019, I became a free agent, and then I signed a deal with the Yankees to be a non-roster invite. Was hoping to have a chance to make the team, pitching pretty well in spring training, and then obviously the world is kind of shut down. Obviously, in March, the COVID outbreak, and we were all sent home. Didn't really know what was next. And then come June with spring training 2.0, I was invited back to New York for the spring training 2.0 in New York at Yankee Stadium. It was like 55 of us probably. And that was very surreal because, this huge New York City, usually nonstop bustling with traffic, was like shut down. But we were there staying at a really nice hotel in Midtown and commuting back and forth on a bus, doing COVID tests every day at the stadium, wearing masks. Couldn't really hang out with anybody. You were just at the field, at your hotel, at the field, at the hotel. And
it really adds a whole nother level to the grind.
It does. It really does. And so you're playing inter squad games every single day against, I was facing Aaron Judge every day, basically. Stanton, Torres, Gio Urshela. Who else was on that? I mean, it was like Gary Sanchez. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to navigate this lineup every single day. This is not fun. Every time I have to pitch. And then I was also, my family was back in Seattle, because that's where we lived at the time. So I was like, man, should I really be doing this? I was having a hard time getting ready. I couldn't break a pane of glass anymore with my fastball. I was barely touching 90. I was never a hard thrower, man. I couldn't even get to 90 anymore. So arm was hurting, body was hurting. So at the end of spring training 2.0, decided to go home. And at that point, I decided it was time to be done with playing. I fell out of love with the preparation. Right. Of all the monotonous, which I used to find enjoyable, shoulder work, core work, all that stuff. And it kind of ended it, and stayed with the family during COVID, and we ended up moving down to Miami a few months later. I have 3 kids that are, elementary school age kids now, so I'm able to help out with dances and gymnastics, and field trips, and that part I really enjoy.
Good. And then you fell into a job with baseball operator, or I want to say you fell into. But you ended up in 2021. I don't know the story there. And in 2021, you were working in the baseball operations department with Cleveland. How did you get in that? And how did you feel about getting that?
Yeah, so I always, like you kind of alluded to at the beginning of this, I loved the baseball since I was a kid. And I always knew I wanted to do something in baseball, and was fortunate enough to create good contacts when I was playing with front office members, coaches, other players throughout the industry. So when I was done playing, I started just basically going through my internal Rolodex, texting guys that I played with that were now in different positions, guys I worked out with that were in different positions, front office members I came across, just to try to pick their brain on what they thought I could do well in the industry. Ended up deciding to take an interview with Cleveland for a front office position with them. I was very fortunate to get it. It was really enjoyable learning and growing, dealing with them, because I really value what they do as an organization and how they run things. So when I was working with them in 2021, helping out with a variety of things, and one of them was actually doing advanced scouting reports for Tito. So I'd always throw in big words to see if you would understand them. I stumped him a few times, but during the year, MLB commissioner's office had reached out about a position that opened up with them in their on-field operations department, where they're trying to get a former player, namely a pitcher, that could help provide some perspective and be an asset to that side. And so did some thinking, didn't know what I was going to do, and ended up taking that job in October of 2021. And it's now been with them in the league office ever since then.
And your title, official title, is Senior Director of On-Field Operations.
Sounds fancy. Sounds fancy, huh?
It sounds fancy, but it also sounds extremely broad. What does that entail? It seems like, it could be anything.
That's exactly right, Jeff. And it does. And that's what's great about it for me. It is broad. So I get to be exposed to a lot of different things within the game, industry, and learn a lot. So whether we're dealing with a jewel event in Tokyo, or the World Baseball Classic, or the All-Star Game, or Little League Classic, or the Field of Dreams game a couple of years ago, Bristol Speedway game coming up, we're kind of involved in a lot of those different things to make sure that the stadium is ready, the field is ready, the players when they get there are taken care of. So we're talking with our global events team to make sure that the locker room is set up in the way that a major league player is accustomed to, that everything is ready for the replay coordinators, the training room, the weight room. So we kind of have our hands in a lot of different things. And then obviously with the big rule changes from a couple of years ago, we're constantly getting feedback from players and coaches in front offices about what they think might be coming next, or where they think the game is going. Always thinking about the fans also and what they want to see, to make sure that this game is growing in an upward trajectory and maintaining its popularity.
I was right. I mean, I knew that was going to be a very interesting job title, extremely broad. Kind of like, you seem like a kind of special assignments kind of guy. Major League Baseball is something they're different. They're going to a lot rather. And you're the
special ops team.
Special assignment, special ops, same thing. So are you mainly working from home doing this? You do a lot of travel, the league office in New York, or?
I get to work from home, on the road, probably 2.5 months out of the year, sporadically. The other two former players I work closely with are Gregor Blanco and Rajay Davis, who I played with both of them. So it's a very easy working environment. And then our group is great, but we're kind of spread out throughout the country with a lot of people obviously in the office in New York. So go there sporadically.
Like you said, they're looking for a pitcher for the job. It's you and a couple of outfielders.
Me and a couple of outfielders, exactly. So now I guess we need to find a catcher, get somebody behind the plate that can tell us what's what.
I'll keep an ear out for you.
There you go. Appreciate it.
Bump into some former catchers for you. So you mentioned the family. You had 3 elementary school age kids. So that you get work from home and the schedule flexibility. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So very lucky to have that. And they're great. They're a handful, 3 girls. So I'm looking forward to those middle school years. Need to brush up on my patience.
I've had an exciting week. It was my son's 5th birthday, Tuesday. Yesterday was the big Chuck E. Cheese deal, and then
nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. I have a 3 and a 5, and just a few months ago I had a 2 and a 4. So I'm a ways away from that.
Yeah, there you go.
School stuff.
Yeah. Same age gap over here. We're 11, 9, 7. 2 years apart.
Well, that's great, man. Now I got a couple kind of questions that I want to ask everybody that I talk to. You being where you are now and doing what you've done in the big leagues, if you were able to get a phone call with just fresh out of high school, Dan Otero, to kind of give him some advice, 18-year-old Dan Otero, give him some advice on something that he could do, anything different than you've done, anything that enhances his baseball experience, you could give him for advice?
Man, that's a great question. Probably a few things. One of the things is I learned after I had Tommy John surgery in 2009, and I never realized how much work I actually had to do to keep my arm healthy until after I had my Tommy John surgery. So that's probably one thing I would have definitely wanted to tell myself. Like, if you think you're working, work more. once you're out of college, it really does become your job. And every day you need to do something to make yourself better. It doesn't need to be go lift heavy weights or go run through a wall, but do something every day that can make yourself just a little bit better. And so I wish I'd probably done a little bit more of that pre Tommy John. And the other thing I would probably tell myself is just to really enjoy it, soak it all in. And, whether you get to low A, high A, doesn't really matter. There's very few people in the world that can say they play professional baseball at any level. And so I think I was able to reflect on that after the fact, but during it, you kind of stress out about, I'm not getting promoted. I'm not moving up. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And instead of just kind of really enjoying absorbing all the fun that it actually is to put on what I like to call comfy pajamas every day. Like baseball uniform is awesome to put on every single day. But just enjoy it.
I know time kind of happens quick. One of the things I've heard with parenting is, what is it? The days are long, but the years are fast. I feel like that kind of could equate to baseball too. You put in all the work every day, 365 days a year for so many years. Then you look back at your career and it's like, oh, that was quick. I wish I could have slowed down and savored that a little more. Kind of similar.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great analogy. Absolutely great analogy. One thing I love to do with our kids is to sit and look at pictures from things that we've done in the past and just reminisce about that. Try to do more and more of it because time does fly. And if you don't actually enjoy those moments, whether it's in the moment or like looking back at pictures from those special events, you can sometimes forget.
Right. My next question, because we kind of answered a little bit in this previous one before. The question I want to ask everybody is, now, if you could go back to 2019, 2020 and call that Dan Otero at the end of his big league career, not sure what to do next, not sure where he's going to end up next, and you could give that young man some advice, what would you tell him?
I like how you still called him a young man. He was a little older at that point.
I almost stopped myself, but it was already
That's
out
all
there.
right. I don't know. I really don't know at that point. Maybe take a little bit more time before you completely hang it up. It was somewhat impulsive, not totally impulsive, but like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? I have no regrets, but that is something that I talked with people about at the end of their careers. And it's like, man, I just wish I had done this a little bit. I wish I'd given it another chance, another spring training, or what have you. So maybe
then you look at it now. If you had changed something there, then you wouldn't be where you are now.
Exactly.
I'm speaking for you, but I'm speaking for you. But I feel like where you're at now is really freaking cool, and it's great for your family life. And it seems like you might have a great trajectory. So we'll touch base in another 16 years and see what you've accomplished since then.
Could be sitting in the same spot right here.
It could be.
You never know.
That could be a great spot for you. That's cool.
You never know.
All right, Mr. Otero. Well, I definitely appreciate your time today, and this has definitely been an interesting conversation. It's fun to learn about a new position that casual baseball fan wouldn't even know existed. It's a whole different side of the sport that people don't really think about. People just see the Field of Dreams game on TV and don't really know how it happened. They see these rules changes and just kind of try and figure out how they decided to do that and how the players get used to it. And now we know the answer to that question. So I definitely appreciate your time. Thank you for being on our show today, and I will probably touch base with you in the future. And it's been great catching up with you.
Absolutely,
Thank you, Mr.
Jeff.
Otero.
Great seeing you, Jeff. Don't be a stranger.